So with more than 24 years of teaching and research experience, she has taught and continues to teach various courses relating to computer science and engineering to various students pursuing graduation and post-graduation in computer science and engineering, and also management students. She specializes in cybersecurity and has guided and continues to guide research scholars pursuing PhD programs in areas such as cryptography, access control management, cyber attacks, cyber insurance, and IoT security. As the chair of the Board of Studies for all computer science academic programs, she has instigated graduate programs in cybersecurity and also initiated specialization elective streams in cybersecurity for graduate students. As a cybersecurity expert, she plays an active advisory role for various IT projects initiated both by our university and also the state government of Puducherry. She collaborates with entities such as National Informatics Center Puducherry, Data Security Council of India on multiple initiatives and projects. She was an invited member of the Blockchain Expert Group to review the blockchain auditing toolkit published by ISACA USA. She has been awarded the prestigious Chevening UK India Cybersecurity Fellowship for the year 2019. In addition to her academic experience, she worked for Xerox Incorporation on a major crowdsourcing related projects for her postdoctoral research work. She has been granted 9 patents and has several research publications on her credit in various national and international journals of repute. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for that great introduction.
Ma'am, welcome you for this session, madam. Welcome you. Myself, Dr. Geeta.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Can I get started, madam?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So is my screen visible to everyone, and am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So very good afternoon to everyone. It is a very great pleasure for me to be part of this cybersecurity FDP, which is being organized by the MGR University and the Department of Computer Science. And I really thank Dr. Geeta ma'am for inviting me to be part of this FDP. I know that there has been an array of specialized talks which has been arranged regarding the various deliberations that are possible or that are required with respect to cybersecurity and its and how we can apply machine learning with respect to cybersecurity. I think in today's context, when we are totally going online for everything, and COVID has still strengthened, or it has still reinforced the fact that most of our activities, including teaching, mainstream teaching, which has been one-to-one or face-to-face, which has been happening all these days, even mainstream teaching had to shift, has undergone a major paradigm shift. And of course, in this FDP also, we are meeting through this online platform. So there is no dearth of cybersecurity threats. And you very well understand, I think most of you here very well understand that lots of efforts and lots of research is going on, as well as it has been there has been a lot of research outcome which is helping us to survive in this digital cyber world, which is full of lot of threats and attacks, in whatever way possible. I think it has been there since the days of the single desktop computers, even when they were not connected to the internet. Even from that time, I think many of you, if you belong to the period when the computers started, I mean, I belong to that generation actually. So we all know that how much we were affected because of those computer viruses, because we had to format the system, floppy disks used to be virus infected and so on. And from then on, we have been seeing different generations of various attacks. Earlier days, we used to call it as computer attacks, and now it has become cyber attacks because we live and we work in the cyber world. So today there is nothing, or we are always staying connected through our mobile phones or through our desktop or through our laptop or any of the handheld devices. We can't imagine a life without being online. And once again, because the more the sophistication we have, it always comes with a trade-off. I think we have to discount for the threats also that it is imposing. And in this workshop, I believe many of the deliberations will help you to understand the different perspectives of the cybersecurity attacks, as well as I think the morning you should have heard from distinguished speakers about this cyber law and what is the importance of machine learning and all. So today, if you take the two best topics that is ruling the digital world, I would say that, and it's also having the best job prospects today, is one is machine learning and AI. So it is, we cannot see any, or it is totally trying to, any field today that we take, it is all invaded, or it is all conquered by AI today. So now we have started moving from applications to smart applications and intelligent applications, which definitely need the intervention of AI. So thereby, we are totally seeing a world which is driven by any application today that we take is driven by AI. And so the other field which we are seeing, or which is really growing up so much in multifold, is cybersecurity. Why? Because as much as we have the we are connected online, so much we are facing the threats. So how we can survive? So for that, we need a lot of cybersecurity related security aspects, and of course, into the academics or into businesses, we are slowly trying to get ourselves acquainted to this. But of course, when you look at online e-commerce platforms like the Flipkart or the Amazon and the online banking systems, day in and day out, they are facing a lot of threats because their businesses are online, and definitely it is involving monetary transactions. And there's a lot of scope, especially if you look at the days when they are having a lot of offers. There is a lot of possibility that their service on that particular day can get hacked, or the website is hacked, or their server is rendered out of service, like because of the denial of service attacks, which all of us are aware of. So these kind of things we are aware day in and day out. And when you study cybersecurity, the first thing that we will be studying is about the various threats, starting, as I mentioned, from the viruses, worms, and then we move on to malware, then the spyware. And now today we are looking at very advanced form of threats. So the threats can be targeted at individual computer systems when they are called as host-based, or it can be network-based attacks also, where an entire network can be compromised. So advanced persistent threats, which is my topic today, it is one form of a more sophisticated form of a threat, and it is a type of attack. Though we call it as a threat, it is a type of attack. So what is advanced persistent threats, and why it is really posing a very big threat, and what is the role of ML? So these are in my deliberations in the next 90 minutes. I think we will be discussing each of these in detail. So as you look at the name advanced persistent threats, so it's not about amateur attackers, because amateur hackers or people who want to just for the satisfaction that they're able to break open into some secure network or secure system. So it is not about those people who are trying to perpetuate these types of attacks. So this is a more deep driven, or as the name implies, it's not only advanced, it is persistent, in the sense the attack will not compromise, or the attacker will not compromise until the system, whatever their goal is, has been achieved. So they'll try to do all possible ways in order to, it's a targeted attack. So that is what it means. So though we call it as a threat, it is a type of attack only, so that we have to be very clear. It is not only stopping with a threat, it is basically a very serious form of attack. And as the name implies, it's persistent because the attackers are no novices, or they are not amateurs. They are actually deep-rooted, and they're having a lot of experience, and it may not be perpetuated by a single attacker. It may be through a collusion of attackers who can be doing this type of attack. And why we call it advanced? Because the attackers will be carrying out, or they'll be making use of very advanced tools in order to, because it will happen in a very, very subtle manner, in the sense we will not, the attacked or the victim will not come to know that their network or their system is being attacked until the problem gets deep rooted. like the cancer, I can give you an analogy, because sometimes most often we have heard that cancers do not manifest itself until it becomes deep rooted, and it is to some extent grown very mature, and beyond that point recovery becomes very, very difficult. So when we recognize that there is a problem, or there is a disease the person has been diseased, he is in a state in which recovery becomes very, very difficult. So that is why that is the biggest concern of this advanced persistent threats also, because the time we know that the attack has happened, the loss would have already been gone. I mean, we have already lost whatever loss was supposed to be the goal of the attackers. It would have been carried out to a major extent. So that is the basic difference between the different attacks that we have. So I think if you look at all of your teachers, if you be teaching cybersecurity, very first we'll be talking about the security goals, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And there is no dearth of different types of attacks that we will be teaching the students, because every new day brings in a different type of attack. And they'll be small or big or very serious or very subtle in their nature, but still they are all attacks being carried out. And the most industries that are targeted by these attacks are mainly the e-commerce sites, and then the military information is of course definitely very, very confidential, or they are mostly subjected to attacks. And very importantly, the e-governance. Today we have the most of the services have gone. I mean, every state is taking care of or initiating efforts to make all their services automated, to provide for transparent and fast and efficient things have become. All the e-governance, the services or the government services to the public has moved or has shifted to the online platform, and because of this, it has become a very consistent and a very lucrative target for the attackers. So with this, I think I've given a really broad introduction. So let me move on into the topic. So here, what I've been giving as an introduction, it has been captured in this slide. So it is a very targeted attack, because it is unlike the other attacks like the hacking, or it is like the intrusions, or it is like a malware attack or a Trojan attack. So in those cases, the attacker will perpetuate an attack, and if it becomes successful, fine, he will get the outcome of his attack. And if he's not successful, it is not going to go beyond, or he might try another attempt. But this is what is different about this is it is referring to a threat which is intrusions, but it is very aggressive in nature, in the sense the attacker will not compromise until this target or until the goal has been achieved. And it is not it is not like they target it once and then they just let it go. They will adopt different techniques. They will adopt advanced techniques, tools, so they can. The ultimate goal is the target has to be compromised, and whatever their goal can be many. I will be showing in a few slides. So what happens is ultimately they want the target, their target to be achieved, or the target computer system or the targeted network, to whatever harm they want to cause, they want to do it at all cost. And in that sense, it is not going to be a one-off attack. What I mean by one-off is an attack is perpetuated. If it's successful, then okay, fine, I get whatever I want from the attack. If it is not successful, I just let it go. No, it's not like that. It's a persuasive and comprehensive attack. So what is making it different? So if you look at here, so in this slide, I have a definition of advanced persistent threat. So it is an adversary with the wealth of expertise. So that's why we say that it is not possible, or it is not by amateurs who are doing this type of attacks. It is by experts who are involved in this, right? And what do they do? And they use a wealth of resources also that can provide a best of or the highest possibilities or the opportunities to achieve the goal by using multiple attack methods. So it is not that they are using a single attack, and if it is successful, they are fine with it and they go away. No, it's about why they use multiple attack methods, because even if one fails, the other will become successful, and finally the goal is achieved. So that's why we say it's it is targeted, it is advanced, and it is persistent. So until the target is achieved, it is not going to be compromised, right? So here, what is some more interesting things is that it is stealthy. In the sense, we do not know that the attack is happening until it has deep-rooted itself into the system or into the network, and it is also a kind of changing itself, because if we look for one particular signature pattern, maybe we'll be looking that it is a hacking attack, or it is an SQL injection attack, or it's something sort of a denial of service attack. Whatever pattern we look for, the next time this attack will change its signature, so that we do not know, or it is very difficult to recognize that this particular attack is happening. So that is why we say that it is a multiple or blended attack. And they will be using advanced and very advanced tools for carrying out these type of attacks. And it is a targeted, and the goal is to get access to the critical data. And this is very important. It's a low and slow approach, meaning that unlike the other attacks where the attacker is wanting the access to the resource at the fastest time possible, so that he can get away with the information, or he can get away with the fraudulent money that he was able to compromise. It's not like that. It's a low and slow approach. Why? Because it is going to happen in a very, very stealthy manner, without even the least knowledge that this type of attack is happening. And the attacker, until the attacker becomes successful, he has to remain like a submarine. He cannot show himself outside, or the attack cannot be shown outside, or the people should not be able to recognize that even an attack is really happening underground. So that is why it is really happening in a low and slow method, with all the advanced techniques possible, and changing of the signatures. So if you look for this particular type of signature, then the next time the attack will be carried out in a different way. Ultimately, they want to reach the target, like bringing the network down or taking the information, something like that. And it is coordinated and well organized, because it is carried out by trained people. It is coordinated and happening in a very well organized manner. But what this APT will do? So just like every other attack, mostly the attack target will be the same. Like they want to take away the intellectual property which you have, or they will want to steal the confidential and sensitive information, because you can do some sort of identity theft, or you can do an identity theft so that you can take away multiple, say for example, in a credit card, data can be stolen, right, of thousands of users, to do an identity theft and make purchases in the name of the different customers whose data has been stolen, and sabotaging of organization infrastructure. So this we know, right? So the servers can be brought down, the networks can be brought down, or else it can be a total site takeover, like the denial of service attack. And the ultimate aim is to, if they are doing an identity theft, they will carry out illegal or fraudulent transactions and create a financial loss. Or it can be an information leakage. That means some private information can be made private. In the sense, Aadhaar data, as you all know, it is supposed to be very private information. But of course, we are asked to disclose it in many places. But the government has to store this Aadhaar information in a very secure manner, because this is a very confidential, private information and confidential information belonging to the customers. Because using that, we can get access to the different aspects of the customer or the Aadhaar card owner's movements or the transactions that he's carrying out. Because today everything is getting tagged to the Aadhaar number, as you all know. So make information leakage means, so if somebody gains access to this Aadhaar card database, then it is also a kind of loss or a compromise of confidential or private information. So these are some of the, as it is the case in different attacks, this is another, the similar things we have in APT also. But what is different is, here it is going to be persistent, it is going to be changing signatures, and it will be happening in a very, very stealthy manner, because until the goal, like intellectual property theft has happened, or the confidential information has been stolen, or information leakage has been possible, it is not going to stop. And how they are doing this stealthy attack? Why do we say it is stealthy? Because they do not destroy the system, and they do not interrupt the normal operations. And as I told you, they try to be stealthy also. and keep the data flowing out. Because if they can inject a Trojan into the network, all the information from the network can be going back to the, I think if you're working in the area of cybersecurity, you might be aware of this command and control, right? So to the control center, see, the attacker will be launching a Trojan, and he becomes the he gives the command and control of this Trojan. So it will start propagating all the confidential information from this network, or in whichever systems this Trojan is installed, and or it has taken control, right? And it may also try to trick a user, like I mean, it comes like a utility software, and that is where we fall prey to it, that it is coming as a utility and we try to install it, but what comes inside is a malware. So this type of things can happen, and this is what is really helping them to to take different attacks possible, right? And what are the targeted organizations? As you can very well see, the targeted organizations are the government, military, public sector, as I told you. And very importantly, today the power systems are also important, because now things have become, the power systems are controlled by the by automation means, and it is possible to do a shutdown of the power or leak the power, right? So all those, or because of the smart meters which is getting installed now. Today smart meters, only the reader is coming and doing the readings, but tomorrow the smart meters will be connected to the control center, and the whatever power utilization that we had for the month will be automatically read from the electricity department offices. So in that case, what we can do is, you can change the readings, you can do many things that is on the data that is getting transmitted. And of course, the financial and corporate sector are very attracting places where this APT threats are possible. And health and sector and medical system, because if not in India, at least in the US, this kind of medical record data is supposed to be very confidential and private, and they have very strong HIPAA rules. I don't know, many of you may be aware of it. So the HIPAA rules are very strong, and no patient data can be disclosed without the approval or without the knowledge of the patient. And it is it will if disclosing such information, private information, warrants a strong disciplinary or you will be convicted before the court of law. So that much strong those rules are actually. And the manufacturing sector, why? Because we want to disrupt the manufacturing operations on a particular day. Why? Because if two organizations are competitors and they want to disrupt an organization, we normally see these kind of things. Now today it is more easy. You can do it from remote, because even the manufacturing unit is all automated and computer driven. And so these kind of disrupting the production for a particular day is definitely possible. And IT industry today, the life or the the whole flesh and blood of the IT industry relies on internet. And if the internet is not working on a particular day, I think it is going to be very disastrous, or it is going to be having devastating effects on the IT industry. So we know, so whichever organization is involving lot of sensitive transactions, and which is happening by means of connecting devices to the internet, or the equipments to the internet, I think all of this are susceptible to this kind of advanced persistent threats. So it is no different from any other threats, except that it is happening in a very stealthy manner. It is happening in a well coordinated manner, and that is why the role of machine learning here is even more stronger. So I think in other cases, when you have studied about intrusion detection systems, we will be normally looking at many machine learning algorithms to detect the intrusions, and thousands of research works has been happened in that particular aspect. And similar to that, even for cyber forensics, to identify to gather evidences from data which has been already deleted. So many critical things it is possible to do with machine learning today. But this is really challenging. Why? Because it is not happening in the single signature form, first of all, and it can change signatures, and okay, let me go to the other slides to tell you the actual differences. So if you look at here, I have shown, try to elicit the differences between the traditional attacks and the advanced persistent attacks. So here, so when you look at the regular hacking, it is like we want to illegally access something and gain entry into some network or into some system. And what they will try to do, they will use normal known methods, because it is carried out, it can be carried out even by new novices or amateur attackers and so on. So it's a short period, because they normally what they do some reconnaissance to connect the information, to collect information about the target system or the target network. Then they try to launch the attack and achieve their outcome or achieve their goal, whatever is intended. And mostly it is for financial benefit. So the APT is no different in terms of the purpose. It is also for financial and political benefits. But what is different is, if you look at the APT, it is selecting a specific target and it is making a very organized attack, right? And the attack method is unknown, or it is also automated. And what is very different is it's taking a long period, because it cannot show itself outside. It has to become very stealthy, change its signatures, and it is very persistent until the outcome is reached. So here, even if the outcome is not reached, like in the denial of service, you want to bring the network down. An attack is launched, and they look for the outcome immediately. If the outcome has happened, fine, well and good. But if the outcome has not happened, maybe they'll try some other time later, or they'll gather more information and do it. But the period in which the attack is happening is short. Whereas in APT, it is taking a long time, slowly. Why it is taking a long time, I'm going to tell you right now. So it is because of the life cycle. So APT, unlike other things, we say it's only an attack, but this form of attack really has a life cycle. So what is this life cycle, and why it is, what makes it different from the other type of attacks? So what happens, it is happening in different stages, and in every stage will be, the attacker can be using different techniques, methods and tools to perform that, to perform that targeted intrusion, right? And the number of stages in the life cycle. So it's not that the life cycle is fixed. When you take the software engineering, when you take at the waterfall model, we say that we are starting with analysis, requirements analysis, and then system analysis, and then the design. So we have a fixed number of steps. And for a project, if I'm following a waterfall model, all the steps I have to follow till the deployment, right? Starting from the requirements analysis till the deployment, the same set of stages, life cycle stages has to be carried out. But unlike here in APT life cycle, it depends upon the number of stages, need not be the same, or it can be varying in number of stages, because as soon as the attack has been achieved, the remaining stages need not be carried out. Okay, so we'll see what is the difference shortly. So normally the APT has 5 stages in the life cycle. So it starts with the reconnaissance, and it ends with the data exfiltration, because ultimately the data exfiltration is the target, and we want to gain access to that, illegal access to that information. And these steps normally, or ideally, not ideally, but in a usual APT attack, this is what is happening. So let's look at this. So normally in an attack like hacking or in a denial of service, we will have this reconnaissance, because nowhere an attack can be launched without a reconnaissance. So reconnaissance is actually gathering the information about the potential target. So about the IP addresses, how many computers are in the network, what is IP address range, and then how much defenses are there, what type of operating system is there, what type of firewall is installed, right? So many things they will try to gather information before launching an attack. So either it is a normal attack or it is an APT, reconnaissance is definitely needed and important. Then comes the initial compromise. So because this APT is trying to gain access into a system or into a network, so first of all, they'll try to gain control of one system, then establish the command and control. In the sense, this first system, suppose it is for an entire network, then first of all, they will identify the most vulnerable target or the most vulnerable system that can be chosen as the first target for the malware to take resident, or for the attack to take resident, and then get established later on in the network. So suppose if the attack is for the server, to bring the server down in the network, or to infect all the systems in that network with some malware or ransomware, first they try to make an initial compromise to gain the first foothold on that particular system or on the particular network by means of some way, by bypassing the defenses that is possible. So that is why we call that as an initial compromise. And the third one is command and control. Now that the initial compromise has been possible, next the system or the installed software, the malware, it tries to establish a communication back with the attacker. Okay, and this has to happen in the most secret manner, because anytime an alien traffic is detected, we have, as much as the attack is sophisticated, so much sophisticated are the attack detectors today that we have, either in the form of intrusions or in the form of firewalls or in the form of honeypots. So we have most sophisticated and advanced detection systems available. So here the important is the moment after the initial compromise, this attacker or this malware which is now implanted into this network or into the device, single device in this particular network, now has to establish a very stealthy connection with the control center, because from there only it start getting the command, and it has to get into the different systems, or it can try to get into the server where the attack has to be targeted, right? And the third step is the lateral movement. So first, I said the initial compromise is taking control of a single system. Now it has to bring multiple systems under control. So that is why we call it as a lateral movement, in the sense it is starting to spread. So after the initial system is become compromised, and then the command and control is established, now next step is for the lateral movement for bringing multiple systems under the control of the attacker. Why? Because if an attack has to be established on that network, it is requiring the entire network to bring down. So it may not be possible, or from a single system, if it is happening, it can be detected very easily. So it is brought out as a normal traffic of multiple systems, right? So the attack traffic has to be made to look like similar to a normal traffic. So that can be possible only if multiple systems are compromised and they are also generating this type of attack traffic, which looks very similar to a normal traffic. So if multiple systems are showing the same traffic, then it may not look very different, because if it is a single system which is generating this attack traffic, then it can fall outside and it can be detected very easily. So in order to make it seamless and in order to make that traffic to be a normal traffic, the lateral movement is done, so that multiple systems are taken control, so that the attacker who is remote can start getting more and more hold on this network to carry out the activity which he was targeting to do. And the last step is, or I should say it is the outcome, that is we have the exfiltration and the corruption. So here is actually what happens. Attacker executes the final aspects of that attack, where he tries to steal the confidential information, say from the server of the bank. He's trying to take away all the credit card information or the debit card information, or he's trying to launch now, because multiple systems are now compromised, he can also do a denial of service attack, whereby a distributed denial of service attack, because all of these compromised systems, now it can target the bank server to execute a denial of service attack. So that is when the final step is happening. So when you have the exfiltration and the actual corruption, and at this point only the business loss is actually encountered, because it is when we are starting to lose the money because of loss of data or loss of money or loss of credibility. So as you see, the seriousness or the attack strength of the attack gets stronger starting from the reconnaissance, when it ends up at the exfiltration, which is when the attack is really serious and the entire network or the system is in real trouble. But as I told you, the life cycle need not be very, the 5 stages may not be always required. So 5 stages is supposed to be required in many of the attacks, but it can be lesser than 5 or it can be more than 5 also, as many of the researchers have done research on this. So we must also understand that just like other type of attacks, lot of research has been happening in the advanced persistent threats also, and people have been trying to do this attack in lesser number of steps or in more number of steps. So what is actually deciding the steps which is required, or the stages that is required in the life cycle? So it is upon how much fast we're able to achieve the attack or achieve the targeted goal that was actually required, sometimes in two stages. See, after the initial compromise and the in the three stages itself we can do it. Like after the initial compromise and lateral movement, taking command, the attacker takes command and control, the entire system can be brought down by means of a distributed denial of service attack. So there, in that case, the attack may be for a distributed denial of service. So only as long as the lateral movement and command and control is required, I need to be staying stealthy. So after that, the three stages is over, and I have taken enough systems under control, and all of these systems now can throw a denial of service attack on the server. It becomes a distributed denial of service, and the server goes down, and it cannot serve the normal transaction traffic. So thereby, 3-stage itself is enough for me. And or it can be a 4-stage when I have to, using these these compromise systems, I carry out the attack, or I try infecting the entire network with some virus or ransomware or something like that, right? So similarly, it can be a 5-stage attack, or in the 6 stages, what happens? What is the difference here is they use intelligence gathering. It's not like just reconnaissance. It is, if they can be using even intelligence data gathering to collect more sophisticated information about the target that it is trying to be compromised. And the attack can be taking as a 6-stage process, or a 7-stage, or it can be an 8-stage, as you look at the different steps which can be carried out. So, so if you look at the 8-stage process, so there is the difference. What you can see is, after establishing the foothold, or after the first compromise, so initial compromise, what happens? It is escalating the privileges. So escalating the privileges means normally every system has got certain access rights in that particular network, or the system has got particular access rights. So now, by escalating the privileges only, you can carry out the attack operations, because normally what an administrator can do, that access rights in a network will not be given to normal users in the network. So by escalating the privileges, you try to gain the access of a network administrator, so that whatever operations or whatever attack you want to launch, those can be possible only by escalating the privileges. So otherwise, if you see here, mostly the attacks, the steps are the same. But what I wanted to really show here is, it is not that only this 5-stage is really needed for all type of attacks. Depending upon the target, either it is only denial of service, then I can just do it with 3 or 4 stages. But if I want to take away the data, then I need a 5 or 6-stage attack. And if it is going to be a very much more a difficult network to target, then I need to go for a 7-stage or 8-stage, because I need to escalate the privileges before I can carry out the attack, because it is a very, very strongly protected network. So the number of stages in the APT lifecycle, it depends upon the type of attack or the compromise or the goal that attacker is intending to achieve. So here, this in one slide, I try to capture all the different tactics or the techniques and procedures that are being used for APT. So here it is, we have done it in terms of the different life cycle phases. So here we have taken the 5-stage life cycle. So information gathering or the reconnaissance, and the initial intrusion or the initial compromise, the command and control, then the lateral movement. So the lateral movement is like, first after the initial intrusion, I get only one system under the control. One system is compromised. Now I want to take it to multiple systems. So that is called as a lateral movement, and achieving the attack objective is the last. So if you see here how I can get the information gathering, I can go either via social engineering. So that is also possible. And web-based tools can be used here. Social engineering is just like I try to remain friends with the people who are having the access rights and try to take away their passwords. And this is for the information gathering. Or I can use web-based tools, like we know a Wireshark or Nmap tool is there to do all the study about the target network or the target system, these kind of tools can be really helpful. They are web-based, plus they can work remotely, they can be controlled from remote, and they can get you all the information about the target network. And the next one is about the initial intrusion. So initial intrusion is how I take control of one system or the initial compromise. So that can be done by means of four methods. One is like spear phishing email. So phishing email, many of you are aware of, but what is spear phishing? So spear phishing here, what we can do is the email will be sent in terms of the name of an employee who is part of that organization. Suppose, say for example, all of us in our institute, we'll be having an institute email ID, right? Suppose an email comes to me from my colleague in his own institute mail ID, then I really trust that mail because I know that it is coming from that particular person only because it is using an institution mail ID, not even a Gmail ID. So spear phishing is sending fraudulent URLs or sending fake URLs using these kind of employees or in-house employee accounts. First, one employee account is taken control. So that is what is the initial compromise. So here I am taking control of one employee's email address, and through that employee, I can be sending any malicious attachment, or I can be sending malicious link which can download the malware. So that malware can get installed into the system of the users, whoever is clicking it, or the person who has clicked it, that particular person becomes the initial compromise. So thereby I can do a initial intrusion. And the waterfall attack is like it is happening through the websites, and it can be through the DNS, or it can be through the website. That attack can be, it can percolate down and it can try to gain access to the server or to the DNS data to get access to the information. And it can also, the initial compromise can also be done through removable media, because once you inject removable media into the system, my malware can get initially installed through the, I can have that malware transmitted through the removable media. So that is why I think all of us are still skeptical about connecting any removable media to our systems, because of the threat which is always there about any form of viruses or things like that, malware getting into our system. And the rogue software. So the rogue software is, it looks like a usual or conventional or utility software, but it comes with inbuilt malicious code which can steal data from you, or it can create, it can destroy your data and something like that. So next is, after the initial compromise, it has to establish connection through the network to the control center. So it can be done by means of protocols, by leveraging the vulnerabilities which is there in the protocol. This type of command and control can be carried out. Why? Because it is possible to spread the, if you have studied about intrusions, intrusions need not be happening through one packet. It can be distributed across packets, so that it is possible to cheat the firewall, telling that it is not it is a valid packet, or it can escape through the intrusion detection system, because it is not showing any signature of the packet data does not contain any signature of a virus or any malware, but put together multiple packets, they do have a signature, which the intrusion detection system is not able to identify. Right, so these are the techniques which can be used. And similarly for lateral movement, so taking control over the OS is important, right? So that is why we are using the standard OS tools, or it can be hash and password dumping. So by that also we can, how? Because if I'm able to gain access to the password of the different systems, then I can easily gain entry into those systems. Okay, so that is how this type of lateral movement is possible by gaining access to the passwords. And the normal method is exploiting the vulnerabilities. So normally, though the systems are hardened, I believe many of you are aware of hardened systems, because to keep the system safe from any form of attacks, normally the system is supposed to be hardened, like it might not be connected to the network, or the open ports will be closed, and the USB drives will be disabled. So these are the different methods by which we can harden the system. But if there are vulnerabilities, then any of these may not be there. That means some port may be open, or it is possible to connect USB drives, or remote login is possible into that system. So those are some available vulnerabilities which can be exploited. So using the standard tools, either window platform tools or non-window platform tools, so many things are available, and all of these can help you in or help the attacker in the to do the lateral movement. And exploiting the vulnerabilities, it can be software vulnerability where it is a zero-day attack. I believe many of you are aware of the zero-day attack, whereby on the 0 day when the software is launched, no one will be aware of the vulnerability, or the creators of the software may not be aware of the vulnerability, and whereby this attacker can make use of that opportunity to find out what is the vulnerability in that software and launch an attack immediately, because all the attention of the deployer of the software will be for the successful deployment and its successful functioning, whereas the attackers will try to find out what is the initial vulnerability which is there in the software, and they can launch an attack. And similarly, SQL injections can create a lot of problems. So it can change the order. So where this kind of attacks you can find out is, especially in the bank sites and the e-commerce sites, this SQL injection can change order data, and in the banks, it can try to, SQL injection can fetch the entire password file. Even if it is a hashed password, it is okay. So the entire password file will be can be provisioned by means of all this SQL injections, or you can corrupt the database by means of SQL injections. And similar to that, we can reusing the injections or the macros and downloads. So through downloads also we can get a lot of malware installed in the system. So different techniques can be used, and finally we can achieve the attack objective. So either it can be data exfiltration, whereby I gain access to the data and keep on sending the data to the control center, or I can exfiltration is gaining access to the databases. Information leakages as and when the transactions are happening, because see, once you gain access to a network, whatever data is there stored, that is data exfiltration. If that data is compromised, we can say that it is exfiltration. Information leakage in the sense, whatever transactions are happening on a day-to-day basis, it can be constantly monitored, and you can get that information. And similarly, the database update, right? We can try to update the data and corrupt the data. So many things can be possible. Or in intellectual property, say if there is a secret formula which is being used by the, it may be a pharmaceutical company which is storing some R&D data about the manufacturing formula for their medicines and so on. So that property can be stolen, or it can be a site takeover completely. So these are some of the objectives. So the different techniques that can be used and the procedures that can be used, we have tried to summarize in this particular one slide. But though I'm not entering into each of these in more detail, so I just wanted to give you a broad overview of the majority of the techniques. I wouldn't say that it is a it's a complete listing of all the techniques and procedures, but at least the most of them has been, we have tried to cover here. And it need not be an exhaustive list, but I can definitely tell you it's a representative list of the different techniques and procedures which can be used in each of the phases. So that is what is important. So what is happening in the first stage, second stage, third stage, until the 5 stages, what are different techniques and tools that can be available? We have tried to give it as a taxonomy or a classification tree that gives you a one-shot reference of the entire APT tactics, techniques, and procedures that are available for carrying out this advanced persistent threat. So it will be interesting for you to know about some of the notable data exfiltrations which has been carried out using this advanced persistent threats. And this, if you look at the amount of money or the amount of users who have been affected, it is really alarming. And we have been still experiencing it till till 2019 data we have given here. So some of the attacks, like it has been newspaper printing. So you may wonder what is going to happen with the newspaper company. So they are trying to take the contact information of the people, because so many people will be providing a lot of advertisements or a lot of news to be published in the newspapers. So all of their data got exfiltered. Okay, so more than 12,000 files and 87 gigabytes of data got compromised. And see, look at this Marriott International. It is one of the very, very famous chain of hotels throughout the globe. So this attack, if you look at it, has been happening from 14 to 18 without any notice. And normally in hotels, what will be the target will be the credit card information or the card details, any other card details or passport, because if foreigners come and stay, or even their passport information will be there. So this kind of data can be stolen from the chain of from the hotels actually, and number of users 500 billion. So look at this year, at least it has been happening for 4 years, and lot of people data got compromised. And Equifax, so once again 143. So Uber, so look at this. So here also, because it is made use by the services for the customers, and people may be using their credit card or debit card for paying the Uber services, and the driver's data is also involved. So look at the numbers. So even Yahoo is not is not spared by this attack, and US, so Office of Personnel Management, so there, which is responsible for the security clearance. So those fingerprint data all got actually compromised. So these are some of the attacks which has got over the years it has been possible. And now we look at specific attacks which has been carried out by APT. So one attack, it was called as a Carbanak attack. And look at the steps here. So first it starts with it. So let me give the preliminary details. The origin is Russia and other parts of Europe, as well as from China also. So it is targeting financial institutions, and the goal is for stealing money and is also for surveillance. And what are the countries which are affected by this? We have an array of all, it's not like growing countries, it's all established countries here, very having sophisticated cybersecurity privileges. So even those countries got attacked by this. So here also we have the intelligence gathering point of entry. So here it was sent through spear phishing mails, meaning the emails of employees got compromised, whereby the attacker was sending emails in the name of or in using the ID of the bank employees. And the lateral movement, and of course the asset delivery. So they have identified the documents. What are the documents to exfiltrate? They identified, and the actual data exfiltration happened. So bank documents where data were stolen, and sorry, this three should have come after 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are the different steps which has happened in the Carbanak, and from the financial institutions, the data has been lost. So bank documents has been taken away by the attack. So Stuxnet is another type of APT attack. So here it is, origin is US and Israel, and the target is Iran's nuclear program. So what it was intending to do is damage the centrifuges used to enrich uranium. So in the nuclear program only, this will happen, this process will happen. The centrifugal machines will be used for enriching the uranium. So they want to damage or bring those centrifuges dysfunctional. So they want to render those centrifuges to be dysfunctional. And the functionality of the program is disturbed. So where all they affected, so these type of countries. So look at this, even nuclear programs could not be spared from this advanced persistent threats. Once again, if you look at it, they have a series of steps. So they first got an initial compromise by means of an infection through pen drive or the removable disk. And then they were searching what other machines could be compromised as part of this network using the initial compromise. And then they updated. So if this system is not the target, then what happens? They are trying to access the remaining. They are trying to lateral movement, right? So those type of things happened. And then now, once a target system has been identified, what it is doing, it is trying to compromise the target system logic controllers. That is the centrifuges which are there. So it is targeting those controllers, because those controllers are controlled by means of the software. So what it is doing, it is trying to take control of those software by which the microcontrollers or the logic controllers can be rendered for doing any malicious operations, or they can be made to do no work at all. Okay, and then the control was established, and finally they were trying to give false feedback to the outside controllers, and meanwhile they were actually attacking the centrifuges, which was you tried to enrich the uranium, and the attack was already happening by remaining stealthy. Nothing was shown outside. And Night Dragon is another kind of APT attack. So here it is origin from China, but you look at this, this has a, so we have seen three different domains. First one was for the financial, second one was for the nuclear program, and the third one here, what we are looking at is for the energy, oil, gas, and petrochemical domain. So here also they are trying to steal information, that is information spying. So they were trying to do that, and the countries which got affected are shown here. So here what happens, the extranet web servers got compromised, access to information, and the username passwords were gotten. And so infected machines, using the emails and passwords, what happens, using that, they were trying to gain access to the executives' computers to gain access to the data. So this was how this Night Dragon APT attack was carried out. So what are the mitigation techniques that can be available for APT? So it is not about, because APT is changing signatures, and it can be, once it can be an intrusion, the other time it can be a DOS, and third time it can be showing up a malware attack. So many things are possible with the APT. So it will be using all possible ways to gain or to achieve the required target. So it can be showing up itself in different forms. So the mitigation techniques also we should be using according to the form in which the attack is manifesting itself. So we might be requiring an anomaly detection, or we might be using a blacklist or a whitelist as we use in the phishing sites. Phishing sites, we have normally we have whitelist and blacklist, or we can be using an intrusion detection system, because sometimes the attack can be carried out as an intrusion. So that time we need to use an intrusion detection system to do it. And very importantly, the awareness. So this is about how we keep the people who are part of the system aware about these kind of attacks, because normally we used to say that the human is the weakest link in the entire chain of cybersecurity. So even machines will not fail, but if the humans are not kept aware, or humans even they sometimes about the disgruntled employees, they are all kind of insider attacks. They can try to create problem from being within the network. So it is very important to create that awareness among the people about these kind of attacks, and what are the different ways it can be used to handle it. And a deception, by keeping some honey pots, you can attract the traffic to attacker to a different place rather than the actual server where the information is stored. So that way you are deceiving the attacker. So deception is one of the ways by which you can mitigate it. And cryptography, because the important, if you see many of the attacks, they have actually tried to steal the data. So if the data has been kept in a encrypted manner, probably the attacker, though he can gain access to the data, then doing a cryptanalysis and then gaining access to the information, the access to the data can be made much more difficult by using cryptographic techniques, because once the data is encrypted, even though it is stolen, once again they have to do some cryptanalysis on top of that to get the actual decrypted data. And you can do a traffic analysis, because by that we will come to know whether this traffic is a normal traffic, because it is very important to understand, because the APT attack remains very, very stealthy. The traffic will look very similar to the usual normal traffic. So we need advanced methods to do this traffic and data analysis to really distinguish between an actual attack traffic or it is a normal traffic. And security information and event management can be methods can be used. And of course, pattern recognitions, which can be part of, it is not individual, but this kind of pattern recognitions can be part of your intrusion detection systems to look for intrusion patterns, or it can be part of your traffic data analysis to look for malicious traffic patterns and so on. And very important is to do risk assessment and multi-layer security. So risk assessment, why? Because it helps you to understand what assets you have and what is the value of those assets and what are the threats you are exposed to as an organization. So if we are, and what is the likelihood of getting attacked, or what is the likelihood of the threat, that is what is the risk. So if we are aware of it, then we can, risk assessment forms the basis for the security management, and we can deploy or employ proper security control methods to effectively control or effectively circumvent. And the other one is multi-layer securities. We call it as defense in depth. Many of you may be aware of it. So multi-layer security is actually Why we say it is defense in depth? Because we have multiple layers of security. So even if one layer fails or one layer is compromised, we have multiple layers. So what do I mean by multiple layers? So first, the data may be encrypted at the data level. Second, the system where the server where the data is stored can be protected by means of firewalls, or the traffic can be routed through an application proxy, so that most of the traffic can be filtered at the proxy itself before it is given to the actual application server. And even before the application proxy, you can have a firewall to stop traffic from this sort of whitelisting IP addresses, which we know are are phishing sites or fraudulent sites. So those IP traffic can be stopped by using the blacklist or the whitelist, right? So this is what, and then we can also use at the periphery, we can also use physical security, like the system where the important server where all these things are stored is completely under surveillance and physical security protection, and we have proper administrative procedures to gain access to the system. So all forms of security we can have, starting from physical security, administrative security, and technical security. So we employ all of them. So that is why it is called as a multi-layer security, or we call it as defense in depth. So this will be important when the system is storing very, very critical or sensitive data, especially like the military information or the e-commerce sites, which is running this kind of e-commerce services, like for Flipkart or for Amazon. Imagine their traffic on a particular day, especially if it is on some a day in which the offers are announced, right? So these things are very, very important. They are very critical and sensitive information, and they are handling very important money involving traffic, banks. So the transactions are really sensitive, and multi-layer security risk assessment is definitely very much part of it. And to some extent, the government also imposes some compliance based on this sort of risk assessment, and they are also emphasizing multi-layer security to protect the systems, to mitigate it, because we know that risk can only be mitigated and cannot be eliminated. So these kind of techniques can be used to mitigate the risk that we are facing with respect to the advanced persistent threats. So as you see here, it is not one particular method, but it is actually having a variety of mitigation techniques which can be used in combination to mitigate the attack, right? And so that is why we see for many of these mitigation techniques, you see there is a natural or an inevitable need for machine learning, especially when you look at intrusion detections, pattern recognitions, right? And then anomaly detection. So we do not know what form this attack will take. So it is important to have many of these at least, or the many of these detections parallelly running, so that it is possible to correlate across these to find out whether it is APT or no. Because normally, if you look at intrusion detections or hacking, any one technique or any one algorithm or one method can be enough. But if you look at this APT, it is not going to end with one stage. So if you are able to detect that some reconnaissance is happening, then that itself you can stop. That is, you are finding that somebody is gathering information about my network or about my system in a very stealthy manner, then that itself you can stop. And suppose if you see next step, initial compromise, the first system is getting compromised, right? So for that system, you can try to put some kind of host-based firewalls, or some kind of host-based intrusion detection systems, which can help to detect the intrusions into that single system. So what is needed is, which we will see, look at this shortly, we will need a variety of techniques which can be parallelly running, and definitely here we need the significance is we will need machine learning to a greater extent. The involvement or the necessity to employ machine learning will be more and more, because it is not a normal traffic that we are trying to analyze. It is about a traffic which is trying to remain stealthy and which is trying to impose itself as a normal traffic. So whatever intelligent way they are trying to hide themselves, it should be possible for us to detect that it is a attack traffic and it is not a regular traffic. Of course, the problems of false positives and false negatives are always there, but still apart from the regular intrusions, apart from the regular firewalls that we have, the firewalls have to be equipped with machine learning. The intrusion detection systems have to be made more and more intelligent to detect these types of intrusions. So machine learning algorithms, all of us know, I'm not here to teach machine learning, but of course we have supervised methods and unsupervised methods. And we do have the regression approaches or the classification approaches or the clustering, or if we have too much of data dimensions, and we can use the dimensionality reduction method. So all of these we are aware of, and we do study about this in machine learning. But in what way it is being used, in what way it is helpful for APT? So that is what we want to look at. So here, what it can be used. So in the detection phase, it can be used. So machine learning applications can be there in the detection phase to detect abnormal behavior, because when we know that the attack is going to be happening in a very advanced manner, in a very stealthy manner, we need to have very sophisticated machine learning algorithms running to detect it, and to do the protection also. So what are the vulnerabilities available? So zero-day attacks, we do not know, right? So the software is whatever vulnerability they find it on the 0 day, that was trying to be exploited. So when we employ this kind of machine learning things, then it can automatically detect these kind of vulnerabilities in the software, and it can fix them automatically before it is going for the deployment. And similarly for prediction in the sense, if the traffic is like this, then what could be the future, whether it can lead to an attack or it cannot lead to an attack. So it can be used for predicting an attack based on the prevailing traffic, based on the prevailing sequences of the packets or the movement of the packets in the network. So we can also use it for predicting the attack that is being perpetuated. And finally, for termination. So eliminating the threat, we are trying to use machine learning applications. So let me go into the slide, which is, yes. So this one is important. So here we are showing in different stages what could be used, what are the features that could be used, and what could be the machine learning algorithms that could be used for handling these types of attacks. Because see, when we look at APT, it is having 5 different stages, and the attack can be detected at any stage. So what we need to do is, I need to have tools or software running parallelly for all of this, or at least 3 or 4 of it. Starting from the beginning, I at least need to understand whether reconnaissance is happening in my system or in my network, or somebody is trying to gain what is unauthorized access into my system or into my network, or whether a command and control is trying to be established. This, at least I need these 3 very importantly parallelly running. But what is important to notice, intrusions can happen either as a single attack, or it can be through a part of an APT also. So whether it is part of an APT, how I will know? Only by correlating the sequence of events which is happening between the reconnaissance point of entry and the command of control. Otherwise, it can be a single intrusion attack, or it can be a single denial of service attack, because it's possible that we confuse APT with a hacking or a regular DOS attack. So when do we know that it's an APT? Because if we are able to correlate between these phases, if there is any connection. So to detect an APT, I will definitely need machine learning applications or machine learning algorithms to be checking whether any reconnaissance is happening in my network, whether somebody is trying to gain access, and whether some command control is trying to be established, right? And whether there is a lateral movement also, I need to be checking, because I need to see if there is if systems are getting compromised with respect to their passwords or their OS level, somebody tries to take information. So these type of things I need to find out. So I will need to have parallel modules, machine learning modules running for each of these, and they can be, their outcome can be telling me that this command control is true, or there is lateral movement possible, or lateral movement is happening, or data exfiltration is happening. But what is important is to understand whether it is APT or no. I need to see if there is a correlation between all of these phases. Okay, so only then it can be an APT. Otherwise, it can be part of a normal DOS attack, or it can be part of a normal hacking also. So, I mean, my terminology may be different because I say normal. The hacking or attacking is not normal, but in the context of APT, a hacking hacking is what to say, it's not that much advanced as APT. So that's why I say it's a regular hacking or DOS attack. So here, these techniques and these are the features that can be used, right? In case of, I would once again, this is not a exhaustive list of features. So here it has taken the example of email for spear phishing, but reconnaissance can also be happening by remote logging tools also, where we will be looking at a different set of features. So here what I'm giving you is a representative set of features which can be used with respect if I'm trying to attack using email. I'm trying to gather information using email. And similarly for the point of intrusion, so what are the features I can be using to check whether there is an intrusion happening or no, and what is the machine learning algorithm that I can be using here or no. So these things can be I can be checking all of this. And what is important is this parallel running of this APT and the correlation. So when we take machine learning, when we run a machine learning application, it is going to give me some results for this person. With this level of confidence, it is an attack, and this level of confidence, it is not an attack. So this kind of things, and when I'm giving a traffic, it can tell whether it is a regular traffic or it's a malicious traffic. This it can tell me. And this will be part of the individual modules. But how do I know it is an APT or no? I need to correlate the sequence of the outcomes. So whether this outcome is related to the reconnaissance gathering, whether the command control is really related to the point initial intrusion which happened, right? And after this only this command and control happened. So this is part of this. So this sort of story building or the sequencing of the operations and identifying the relationship between the different phases is very much needed. So that is what is making this APT stand apart or stand outside or stand different from the existing regular attacks, which is always there. So because in regular attacks, we normally try to, it may be a single intrusion. So for me, it is just enough if I run an intrusion detection system and find it out. But APT can be something more. Okay, so there might be, it can be having lateral movement, and it can be taking the data, right? So many things are possible with the APT because all of these are phases, and an attack can be in any of these phases. So it can be starting from reconnaissance, it would have just moved into initial intrusion. So it is important for me to detect this attack at any of the phases it is happening. So what I need is, that is why I tell that I have 5 parallel modules of this machine learning algorithms running, so that I can find out whether there is an attack possible or not. And if it is, whether it is an APT or not, I need to do some correlation over and above the normal or the regular machine learning applications which is available. So these are some of the machine learning approaches that has been used, and what is the accuracy that they have achieved, and what is the outcome they have achieved because of this. So this is somewhat a broad-based literature review about this type of the literature which is available with respect to the APT. So you can see that result somewhere has been from 9, even 100% it has been the accuracy, and so variety of methods have been used for different stages, and different outcome has been achieved. Many, so see, there's a lot of research happening in this particular domain because of the seriousness involved, and it is also more advanced than the regular hacking or the intrusion detections. And you might also be interested to know the different research labs which are working with APT, like Kaspersky, you might be aware of already, but there are other labs also throughout the globe which are working in this APT attacks. And the blogs or websites, because these are the places where we can try to gain access to what is currently happening in the case of advanced persistent threats, and what is really the current trend which is there, and what is the latest news which is happening. So all this can be got from this. And what are the data sets, because APT is not just an intrusion. So because we need to have different data sets which will help us to find out whether it is a it's really a advanced APT threat, or it's just a intrusion threat or no. So here we give some of the data sets which are available, so that you can be using those data sets to understand whether for your experimentation, this advanced persistent threats, you can be using this. And these are my references. Yeah. So I'll take some time to take questions. So that is why I just went through it a little fast. So I want to spare some time for the questions here. So Madam Geeta ma'am, over to you. So you can coordinate the participants for their questions.
Ma'am, this is Dr. Usha, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for your wonderful presentation. So we have gathered many things about this persistent threats. Ma'am, there are a few questions on the chat box. Shall I read it out?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a question. Once attacker knows IP address, they can, what is it? IP, they can control entire network. So lateral movement also possible in ordinary attack also.
Yes, madam.
So yes, so it's in normal traffic. So we do not say that lateral movement is not there in an ordinary attack. Okay, so it can definitely be there. So what is your question? So so that's what I was telling. So denial of service attack is always possible. So this what you're telling is distributed denial of service, because they can compromise multiple machines and take control of the network. So what is different?
Is alone for APT?
No. It's not only for APT.
It's also for normal network also.
It can happen in any kind of attack. So what is different is, once this type of DDoS attack is launched, in the case of regular DDoS attack, it's a what to say, once attack is launched and if it is successful, it stops with that. But in the case of this APT, the phases are required. I mean, I definitely need lateral movement, because I can take control of multiple systems. I can launch the attack. So that is part of my attack. I do not say that lateral movement is only needed for APT. APT very much needs it, because through multiple machines, it can launch the attack or it can take control of the network in order to achieve the goal. And if it is not possible, if the lateral movement is not possible, then it will take another form. It will try to make some sort of different way of accessing the network. So in the case of DDoS, if DDoS is successful by means of lateral movement, then it will launch the attack and finish it off. If it is not possible, somebody has found out that it is an attack, then it has got failed. That's it. But in the case of APT, if the lateral movement is not possible, then it will try to take a different way of gaining control of the different systems. That is what I wanted to tell you.
Okay, madam. Okay. I thought it is only specific to the APT. That's why I asked the question.
No. See, it will look very similar. So in APT and other attacks, some of the phases may overlap. But what is important to understand is, if this particular signature of this particular technique did not work, then the attack is not forsaken. It will try some other way. Okay, so that is normally the difference.
Okay, madam. Okay, madam.
Thank you, ma'am.
Blockchain concept technology can be used to solve zero-day vulnerability. See, zero-day vulnerability is about leveraging what is the problem in the current software, but I really do not understand how blockchain can be used here. But blockchain has been used for a variety of solutions. But in this case, what exactly you are referring to, I am not understanding. What aspect of the 0 day you want to solve it using blockchain? You have a specific question in mind? from Dr. Dinesh Kumar.
Dinesh Kumar, sir. Ma'am, there is another question.
What are the issues to be addressed in BCT? So, see, BCT can be used to handle variety of attacks, especially in the case of normally in the case of IoT applications, we have seen this BCT being used because at the physical layer, I think the devices are all very micro, and what is happening in the device, we are not able to completely take information. So in that case, we will record everything in the blockchain so that it is possible to identify or control what is happening in the device through the blockchain. Even authentication can be possible, can be addressed using BCT, because the IoT device is very, it is, the device is somewhere in the field, whereas the control system is somewhere in the cloud. So instead of the password authentication or any form of authentication traveling to and fro the cloud, we can use the blockchain to carry out the authentication on behalf of the application. So those things also in IoT security they have attempted.
Yeah, thank you,
But
ma'am.
normally BCT can be used for it can be used to data modifications. Attacks can be, integrity attacks can be handled, because anytime you make a small change in any record, it can be detected because every data is put into the blockchain. That is why the concept of blockchain itself we have. Whenever we want immutability, right, and we want the history to be maintained without any modifications, and we want every transaction to be recorded in the order in which, in the manner in which it happened. Okay, so for all of those things, BCT is very much helpful. But for this attack detection, we can think of prospects, because I am not completely ruling out the possibility that BCT cannot be used. We can think of ways in which BCT can be used for handling APT, different aspects of APT also. But right now, BCT is used for handling integrity. If you want immutability, you don't want the data to be changed, and you want to achieve reliable transaction in a totally untrusted environment. Okay, without the third party. Right now, we have the banks or we have the trusted third party to mediate the transaction so that both the participants will be agreeing with they can trust the transaction. But how to perform trusted transactions without the involvement of third party? BCT is the solution today. So we don't want banks. We can be doing monetary transactions between users itself, between customers ourselves. That's what the Bitcoins and all we are using it. Okay. So the cryptocurrencies can be transacted without the involvement of the banks. So those are some of, in a very, very transparent, immutable and reliable fashion, because in a digital environment, I cannot trust who's the other person I'm interacting with. So when we are transacting in a totally untrusted environment, and I want to still achieve a reliable, transparent transaction, and I can definitely go for the blockchain. Blockchain technology can be used to solve zero-day vulnerability. Zero-day vulnerability, if, say, for example, I am a genuine user and I try to find out what this type of vulnerability, I can be putting that in the blockchain so that nobody can change it. So that anytime any other user comes and sees that this vulnerability is there, either they can proceed to work with the application, or it can be a sign, caution sign to the deployer or the developer of the software, who can actually try to create patches or try to resolve the issues which is there in the zero-day vulnerability, so that it can be rendered free from attack. I should not say free from attack. It is actually made resilient to attack or immune to attack at that point. But some more new attack comes, once again the immunity has to be improved, because attack will always keep on happening.
Ma'am, one more last question. If it is a cloud data, what kind of attack?
One second. If it is a cloud, where is the question? I didn't see.
It's below that question, ma'am. Since attack also looks normal traffic, how to identify is there? No, below the one question is there.
Okay.
If
So
it
you
will-
want to understand in the cloud how APT attack can happen.
So they are
See,
asking
cloud-
what kind of attack will be there like that.
Yeah, if it is cloud.
Yes.
Since normal traffic and attack also in the similar pattern, how it is possible to identify the attack?
In the
That's my
cloud, you
question.
mean to say?
Yeah. No, wherever in the network. Since
Yeah, so
attack-
either the data is in the cloud or the cloud is attacked or the company network, organization network is attacked, it is all the same. Okay, so this, if it is happening in the cloud also, then the cloud service provider has to be providing the same kind of attack only, because in the cloud there's multiple infrastructure and the cloud services are rendered. If it is a public cloud, then the software as a service may be running, or the infrastructure as a service may be running, right? Or if it is a private cloud like the data centers of the banks, in that case also, whenever we talk about cloud, we are talking about infrastructure, we are talking about data. Okay, so any kind of this cloud also, this kind of attacks can be carried out in the same fashion as a company, organization network, or a website which is being attacked. So similar attacks can be, APT can be definitely carried out in a cloud also in the same fashion which I told. But this can be handled only by having the control methods, because it requires really sophisticated control methods to detect whether it's an APT or no. Otherwise, we will be confirming. Otherwise, we'll be, what to say, if I detect it as an intrusion detection, then I will say, okay, this is only an intrusion detection, and I'll stop. Maybe the intrusion was for taking away the data which is stored in the cloud. How do I know that? Whether this attack is still going to proceed or no, how do I know? So that's why I tell that exfiltration, data exfiltration detection, reconnaissance detection, and then the lateral movement detection, all of this has to be running parallelly, and the correlation also has to be happening to detect whether it is a APT or no. Otherwise, it's possible that I will conclude that this is only this type of attack, which is showing much lesser criticality than the APT.
Okay, thank you, madam. Using the control method, it is possible to identify.
No, not the control. I need to have all of these. See, I have 5 stages. I need to have software. I need to have machine learning algorithms running all of these 5 modules parallelly. And I need to correlate the relations between them. Whether reconnaissance was there as well as command control was there, then it can be either an intrusion or it can be a Trojan, or it can be next stage. I will see whether it is also leading to something else. It is part of APT. So this type of
Parallelly, we have to analyze it. Parallelly,
yes.
we have to. Oh, okay.
Parallelly, you have to collect data and you have to correlate it and see.
Okay, madam. Okay, madam.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. You have cleared all the doubts which is raised by the participants. So thank you, ma'am. Geeta, ma'am.
So anyway, I must also thank you for the opportunity given by your institution. And I would also like to congratulate all the faculty who are here for this FDP. Thanks for your patient listening, and also for your interactive interactions with respect to your questions, and which is really showing your interest. But I think cybersecurity, as a conclusive statement, I should say that cybersecurity and machine learning, they are actually their combinations can help to achieve wonders in cybersecurity. So it is really an interesting field, and it is worth exploring as a research topic, and it is evergreen research area also, because there is no dearth of cyber security attacks. Every day new types of attacks keep coming, and how we can effectively use machine learning for securing network is really very interesting. So that is the significance of this unique combination of, normally if you take machine learning, it will be applied to data. Here we are applying to the network traffic data to find out whether it's an attack or no. It's like that. So this combination is really very important and very needed for cybersecurity. So thank you one and all, and hope you have a very
thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you for the wonderful session you have just given. Really, no words. It's a matter of a word. You have accepted a request, and today you have given your session on advanced threat persistence. But anyway, the faculty members, participants have given a very good feedback about the session. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the guest speaker of the day.
Thank you very much. And see you all. Have a great FDP and all the best wishes to everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Dr. MGR Education Research Institute, we would like to thank all the participants who patiently listened today, all 3 sessions. So, and tomorrow, day 2, kindly log in by 10 a.m. sharp. So we'll start the session with Surya Tej. Okay. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, madam. Madam, are you going to share the PPTs and
Yes,
recording?
sure. We will do it. We'll do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, madam.
Yes.